So finally, moving on to part three. Part three is normally an article, but it can be a story, and they give you the first words of the story. So you have to think about how to begin and think about using adverbs and adjectives together, especially extreme adjectives, which are on page 87 in your book. Now, let's move on to the Word document. So let's hope that you've already passed the spelling and grammar components in task 1 and task 2 respectively. Yeah, that's why we keep the spelling very simple in part 1, so that you pass spelling there and then you don't need to worry about your spelling in part 3, which is much longer and gives you more chance to make mistakes. On the other hand, because task 3 is longer, you've got a better chance of getting 5 grammatically correct level 1 sentences to pass the grammar component. But because most people take too long on part 1, or they write too much in part 2, they don't always get to finish part 3, which is what makes your plan even more important. You must write a plan to pass. In fact, by just writing a plan, you could actually have passed all of the criteria of the exam before you even write your article or your story. I wouldn't risk that because it's taking too big a chance. Right. What do they have in common? Task 3 tends to be an article, but it can be a story, and they both need a headline. That means a title. They can both use rhetorical questions. Have you ever wondered? Okay. They test your expressive use of adjectives, but we still need the 5 grammatically correct level 1 sentences. Now, that means slightly longer, slightly more complicated sentences with more than one clause, but I'll show you how to do an easy one of those towards the end of this recording. Right, look at these two tasks. The first one says write an article about a local tourist attraction, and the other one says write a story that begins, when we left home that morning, we didn't know what a wonderful place we would see on our visit. They both require you to describe a place. So the title for one could be the best tourist attraction in Bedfordshire, and the other one could be a day out that I will never forget. Which one? Well, of course, the best tourist attraction in Bedfordshire is the article, and the day out I will never forget is the title of a story. We can also begin them in slightly different ways. I don't know about you, but I've never been a big fan of amusement rides. That, of course, would go with the story. Okay. Have you ever wondered where to take the kids for a day out they'll never forget? Could be the beginning of your article. Okay. Rhetorical questions, starting with a question and then answering it. For some reason, they always think, the exam boards always love that. They think that every article begins with a question. When I read magazines and newspapers, they never begin with a question. Right, some vocabulary. Yeah, let's try and get some good vocabulary in. Absolutely stunning is stronger than very pretty. Quite full isn't very much, but completely packed is extreme. Rather difficult. It's rather difficult to find a job volunteering. It's utterly impossible means you've got zero chance. So extreme adjectives, normal adjectives, try to use some of those. Try to make some longer sentences. Whoops, here we go. Now, I don't have time to do these in details, but the easiest way is to use a non-defining relative clause. Instead of saying the embankment is next to the river and it's incredibly picturesque, we can say the embankment, comma, which is incredibly picturesque, comma, is next to the river in the center of town. Okay, that makes a longer sentence. Easy to do, isn't it? We can use inversion, where we begin with not only and then we swap the verb and the subject around to make it look like it's a question. Not only is the embankment in the center of town, but it's also picturesque. We'll do that one in class. Or a linker, as well as being very central, the embankment is very picturesque. You work on the details, the content, and I'll do the grammar when we're in class, okay?